What's up everyone, it's Mark and I hope you're keeping very well. It's a very sad day. My Evolv build has been stripped, RIP, but my new build that replaces it looks fantastic. Let's check it out. Today's video is sponsored by Your CD Key, a website I have used several times myself that sells official Windows 10 keys, games from Steam, Origin, Uplay, plus PSN and Xbox Live prepaid cards. Using code ST will get you an extra 20% discount on a Windows 10 Pro key. Simply type the code during checkout to save yourself some money, and all the relevant links will be in the description. Right guys, this build has only had a few changes compared to my previous one. What stands out the most is of course the case. Jumping to the Evolv X, I've not only noticed quite a few improvements, but there's a fair few areas I actually prefer the older model. The side panels have been greatly improved, now they're on hinges. Both doors swing out to 180 degrees, allowing for easy access. I'm still waiting for a company to make a case with tempered glass suicide doors. A man can dream. No! Phanteks have added a whole bunch of RGB lighting that can be controlled with various components inside the build. Overall the lighting is smooth and it sets the case off nicely at the front and along the PSU shroud. Airflow was a real drawback on the previous Evolv, especially since I used to run two cards in that build. The front on the Evolv X has much bigger vents, allowing for more air to travel, although it still has to enter from the sides, which is far from ideal. Checking out the top of the case, it's the Evolv X's biggest improvement to airflow. Two much larger grills have been added, and mounting fans is super easy now as the whole top panel can be removed. Overall, this case seems a lot taller, and this is to accommodate the Evolv X's dual system capabilities. If you also buy the Revolt X PSU and ITX mounting plate, both allow for two builds to be installed. Now this is where some negatives start to creep in, as the case is a kind of jack of all trades but a master of none. For a standard clean build like mine, the extra height has left a lot of empty space at the top of the motherboard, exposing all the fan cables, giving the build a slightly untidy look from the previous edition. Don't get me wrong, the extra clearance would be great, especially for big radiators, but for a simple clean build like mine, it doesn't look as clean compared to the previous edition. And that's my only real gripe with this case. I did rest the motherboard on the PSU shroud for a second when I was installing it, and unfortunately I did scratch a bit of the paint. So if you are going to be installing a build inside this case, be very careful with the PSU shroud because it scratches extremely easily. Moving on to the absolute beast of a GPU, the Zotac 2080 Ti Amp Edition, mounted vertically. I'll probably switch it back after, I just wanted it to look cool for this video. I wanted a GPU that didn't have any RGB lighting as well on the fan shroud, so it wasn't too distracting on the tempered glass. The Zotac Amp fitted this case nicely. With just a touch of RGB lighting on the side, I'm really happy with how this card looks. The card features a 2.5 slot triple fan cooler, and it looks the part. Thankfully it isn't slammed against the case's glass, and we will check out this card's performance and the whole system a little later on in the video. And there's abundance of ports on the back of the card. For power it requires two 8-pin connectors. With the card mounted vertically, I'm in love with the extension cables and how they look. Other than that though, this build is pretty much the same as the previous one. It's still running the 6850K on the X99 platform, and overall I don't really see any need to upgrade yet. And I won't be going into too much detail about overclocking apart from the CPU. It's at 4.5 GHz and the card had no trouble hitting 2K promised land on the core and the memory. I decided to cut back on the DDR4 as 8 DIMMs was a little bit overkill in my previous build, but I'm still rocking the 3200 MHz Dominator Platinum with cable mod tops. There is going to be some new RAM coming out very soon from Corsair, which I wanted to put in this build, but unfortunately they're not released yet and I'm not allowed to show you, which is a bit of a shame. But also I've got Corsair LL Series fans, a H100i, and the LL Series fans are running at a much lower RPM at the top and the back compared to the front, so airflow remains positive. And lastly, powering the whole system is an 8X 1200i PSU, which is way overkill, but it covers me for all my builds that I do on my YouTube channel. Anyway guys, now we're going to jump into some benchmarks, and I thought it would be interesting to compare this build to my other build, which has got a Z370 motherboard and an 8700K. It's actually got the godlike motherboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Zotac 2080 Ti out of this system after I've done the benchmarks that you've been seeing, the system you've been seeing in the video, the X99 platform, 6850K, and I'm going to swap that GPU into my other build, and I'm going to compare the two systems to see how relevant X99 is currently, and to see if it can still keep up, because I personally believe that this build is more than capable of running this 2080 Ti from Zotac. So anyway, we're going to start the benchmarks now. I hope you enjoy them. Well, overall this build performed extremely well. There certainly wasn't any bottleneck from the CPU or the X99 platform, although the FPS was slightly lower than my Z370 and 8700K build. Overall, I do believe that it looks fantastic. It looks better, in my opinion, from the outside compared to the old Phanteks build, although when you open it and you see a huge gap at the top, and you know what I'm like with my cable management, it does kind of put me off a little, but when it's all turned on with all the RGB lighting, it does look extremely nice. That said, I do miss my 2-card setup, but with SLI and how it performs nowadays, it's just generally not worth it. I probably would keep a 2-card setup if the cards didn't cost over £1,000, which I could never afford, and also I don't actually game at 4K, so I just generally don't need it, and SLI doesn't seem to perform that well with the 2 cards installed. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Anyway, I shall see you real soon. My name is Mark from Silence Tech. Goodbye.